The Bible describes several experiences of culture change, but I don't know if there's one more powerful than this: the Exodus. From a culture of slavery to a culture of freedom. This is what God says about it. Exodus chapter 19, verse 4. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. And although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. My treasured possession, carried on eagle's wings, and a kingdom of priests. When it comes to culture change, there is the plan and there is the process. The plan's relatively simple. We're going to stop being slaves. We're going to shift across the desert. We're going to start being free. You could put timelines on that, get your little action steps, monitor progress, nothing to it. It's the process that's tough. Because the process is turn loose of slavery, not just out there, but in here. Trudge on through the desert, and nobody thought it would take that long. And then take hold of a new life in a new land. These steps are the same for every culture change that we deal with when we're dealing with the process. Turn loose. It's a grieving process. Old ways, old identities. But that's who I am. And sometimes grief is expressed in anger, and sometimes it is bargaining, and sometimes it is fear. But down underneath, it is grief. Shakespeare's great line, he who lacks time to grieve, lacks time to heal. So how can we turn loose? You are my treasured possession. God's got a hold of you, so let it go. Trudge on. The wilderness, which begins with the word wild, and that's what it is, wild times. We're confused and we're disoriented and we're trying to figure out how this all works, and we all long for the old ways and we long for what we used to know, and somebody finally says, I wish we were back in Egypt. And it's going to happen. That's just the nature of the process. But how? How in the world can we trudge on? Frankly, in the tradition of my faith, the holiness tradition, we don't have a very good trudge theology. We're pretty much victory in Jesus, you know. But trudging is a part of the Christian life. Trudging is a part of organizational change. Trudging is coming to a new understanding of who we are. And it's out there in the desert. Let me give you a picture. Under the big top, everybody looks up. It's the moment when the trapeze artist has let go with one hand but hasn't taken hold with the other. Suspended. That's the challenging time for a leader. That's a challenging time in your own soul. How do you deal with it? I carry you on eagle's wings. Now you can only see that by faith. But even when I'm disoriented, when I got wild thoughts, when I want to go back to Egypt, but no, I need to press on, my faith says that underneath this difficult, crazy wilderness, God is carrying me on eagle's wings. Remember the old line, the old holiness preacher. It didn't take 40 years to get out of Egypt. It took 40 years to get Egypt out of the Israelites. And now we take hold. And taking hold comes in different ways for different folks. Some, they need a clear purpose that's written and they can engage it and embrace it and it makes sense for them. Others, they really want a plan. Show me the plan. Show me the steps. How is this all going to fit together? And a plan's important. For a lot of folks, though, it's a picture. It's a story. It's something where their soul kind of goes, I get it now. And that's a little more difficult to predict, but very necessary for many people. But I think for most folks, really, it's a place. Where do I belong in this process? I lost my place in the old way we did things, but what's my place in the new way we do things? And when they find their place, they can settle in and say, I can do this. Now, how do we take hold? Here it is. I love it. You will be, for me, a kingdom and priests. God has a vision. God has a way of getting hold of this. Some years ago when I was teaching a class in business at Mount Vernon Nazarene College, I brought in a member of my congregation named Jay Gould, who was a vice president of a bank. And I asked him to talk about being a spiritual man as vice president of a bank. Great speech. And he finally brought it down to 3 things. He said, this is what I believe every day when I walk into that office. Number 1, God is loyal to me. Number 2, God is in control. And number 3, God and I are making history together. That's pretty good. And that's where you find the faith that says, I can turn loose, trudge on, take hold. Because I am God's treasure. He carries me on eagle's wings. And He has purpose in His soul for me to be part of a kingdom and a priest.